It's a new year, and that means we're gonna be starting it off with the Buff Dudes beginner workout routine. Not only for you guys that might need it, but also for us too. Usually around the holidays, you might take some time off, there's treats, there's drinks. It's time to start this year serious, and that's why we're beginning with the 5x5. And whether you're a beginner, you just haven't been into it for a while and you wanna get back into a solid routine, or as Brandon said, you just took that nice, healthy holiday break, use this routine and you're gonna get your ass into shape big time. You're gonna be doing a lot of compound exercises, a little bit of isolation thrown in there. It's everything you need to build a new you, a better you, a buffer you. And speaking of asses, we're gonna start this workout off with squats. Hell yeah. If you followed us in the past, you know we love the 5x5. What 5x5 means is 5 sets of 5 repetitions. So you're gonna be doing an exercise such as squat 5 times, and every time you do it, you're gonna be doing 5 repetitions of it, with rest times of about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That being because each exercise we're gonna be performing is a compound, which is a major exercise recruiting multiple muscle groups, and it really taxes you. As you can tell from my breath, I'm a little winded right now, and that is thanks to the squat. It is an excellent exercise, really one that we consider invaluable to have in your arsenal, and that's what we're getting started this 5x5 on, is the squat. A compound exercise working multiple muscle groups, but also multiple muscle joints as well. Hips, knees, ankles. The hips be moving in a flexion and extension. So it's really hitting those glutes, working the ass, and also the knee extension and flexion, which can be working your quads, your hamstrings, also a little bit in your calves, just for stabilization of like the ankle joint, the knee joint as well. So it works a lot, but of course your upper body is used to help stabilize the movement, your core, your back, your shoulders, to really flex that bar towards you, to make sure it's not gonna roll off, it's not gonna move, it's not gonna be unstable. So it's an excellent exercise, not only to start the workout off, but just in general. I mean, this is completely functional. You use this kind of movement every day, so it's really good to be strong in something like this. It can be a very intimidating exercise, as with all exercises really. If you haven't spent a lot of time in the gym, or maybe you've been away for a while, might be a little rusty. And sometimes it's good to go through a little mental checklist of what to do, what not to do, some tips, keeping your knees in line with your toes. That's essentially making sure your knees are always externally rotated. So what happens if it gets really heavy, kind of knees can collapse inwards here. What happens is you really externally rotate, kind of fire up that glute med here and push up from there. That's really gonna not only train proper form, but make sure you're utilizing all the muscles appropriately for a squat. And then get stronger from there. Rounded back, obviously the bar is gonna be important there, because if it's right at the base of your neck, when you squat down, the bar is gonna be pulling away for the center of gravity here onto your toes, so your back's gonna wanna follow. You're gonna wanna collapse inward here. So kind of keeping that bar back, a little bit more of the mid-trap area here is gonna make sure it's located right in the mid-foot area, so when you squat down, it'll be a little bit easier to keep a higher chest, keep it flat back. So make sure you're not like pulling forward, tensing that core, nice deep breath, top position, bring down, slight hold, push up from there. It'll kind of help stabilize you through that nice heavy push. And pretty much the main ones, of course, the neutral chin is always good if you're staring up like your high school coach used to teach you. Look at the ceiling, you know, you're kind of breaking that form, and so the whole central nervous system can be thrown off a little bit. So you should kind of keep that neutral chin, kind of pick on the spot on the floor, kind of look at it the whole time, and you should be good to go. And of course, if you're just unsure of performing a squat in general, you can just do a body weight. You're getting the movement down, you're practicing some of the good things to keep in mind, like the knees in line with the toes, the back straight, the chest up, the chin in a neutral position. It's all about just getting more comfortable with what you're doing, which is a great thing. We had a long road ahead of us. We were doing this plan for 15 weeks. This is just the first day. What we're gonna be doing is our brand new superhero plan. Me and Brandon designed this thing. We're very proud of it. This is the beginner stage. If you can, pick up a copy, link in description. Help support us so we can keep doing our thing. We really appreciate it. And if you do, let us know how the journey goes for you as well. We're right along there with you, and we're excited to bust this thing out. We wanna get in the best shape of our lives using our plan, and hopefully you do too. As you'll notice, about 225 pounds performing the squats, so not super light, but not by any means extremely heavy either. Because the thing is, running through a plan, we plan on performing one that's gonna be 15 weeks. It's our new superhero plan. That's a marathon. That is not a sprint. So you don't really wanna come straight out the gates running as fast as you can. It can be really easy, especially maybe in a new year, or you're just getting back into the gym. You're like, I wanna be in the best shape of my life right now. But the thing is, you have to visualize a little bit. Set some short-term goals, set some long-term goals. Me and Brandon, I would like to say we're in good shape at the moment, but of course we want to be in better shape, and that's not going to happen overnight. So start with a reasonable weight. Don't push yourself too hard because you've got a long ways to go. You don't want to burn out, and you sure as hell don't want to injure yourself. So we're not, I would say, extremely excited about the weight we're doing. We've done heavier in the past, but we also have to remind ourselves this is just the beginning. We've got plenty of time, and it's that consistency and hard work that's gonna pay off for us, but also for you. We started this workout off with legs, doing the squats, and now we're moving on to the back with the bent over rows. And as you're gonna notice through the duration of this video, we're gonna be covering the full body. So something you wanna keep in mind with a workout that hits almost every muscle group that you have, you're gonna be damn tired. And it's not after the workout that you get stronger, it's after the rest and recovery that you get stronger. So don't feel that you just have to power through workouts 7 days a week. Feel free to take a little time off. We've designed this program so you'll hit a workout such as today, day 1, you're gonna take 1 day off, and then you're gonna hit it again the following day, because the rest is very, very important in addition to hydration and of course, proper eating habits. It's gonna take all 4 of those things, the workouts, the food, the rest, the hydration, to make yourself a buff dude.
So if you're curious about the bent over row, some things to keep in mind is, as you can see, we're starting this exercise off on the floor. You can also do it in a racked position too, where you just unrack it, walk back, and then get into the bent over position. But you can also do it from the starting position up the floor, which sometimes is a little easier because you can just get in your posture right, where you walk up to the bar, kind of get about mid-foot on the bar there, and as you can see, my feet are just about hip width, and they can be pointed out in a slightly comfortable position, either a little farther, a little bit more narrow, whatever feels good for you. You're just be bending over by flexing the hips and also the knees. You're just be grasping the bar just about shoulder width or slightly wider, kind of depending on, you know, how it feels for you. But once you get into this position, you want to make sure that back is nice and flat, neutral chin. You're going to be slightly squatting it up into the position, and then you're going to be rolling it right in to that belly button area. Now, of course, like anything, the things to keep in mind of what to do, the opposite of that is gonna be what not to do. A rounded back, put a lot of pressure on the lumbar spine there. So if your back is round and you're trying to row it up from here, of course, if your chin isn't neutral, you're looking straight up, and really just kind of jerking the weight up. Obviously you want a nice smooth motion, nice and controlled. Not only the eccentric contraction, which is the negative portion of the lift, but also the concentric too. Bring it up to the belly button, nice squeeze. Of course, getting that nice retraction in your scapula, because we're all about the retraction, but it's also protraction as well. So there's 2 different movements: protraction, bringing it forward, and then retraction and pulling it from the protracted position back. So that is really gonna help engage those lats. So that's the things to keep in mind. And well, good luck. The good thing about a 5x5, 5 reps goes very quickly, so it doesn't really feel like you're under a lot of strain. Very functional movements, very big movements, really focusing on that kind of that strength in the central nervous system, so that way later down the line, as the volume increases, complexity of the training starts to increase, you're ready for it. So that's why you always want a beginning phase within your program to make sure you're ready for those later stages, so that way you're constantly adapting and progressing and becoming bigger, better, and buffer.
Starting to feel a little bit more loose, a little bit more like a buff dude. That's how this is gonna work. Feeling a little cold, feeling a little stiff there in the beginning, and the personality warms up a lot like the body does. So there's gonna be a long series. By the end of this thing, we're gonna be full-blown buff dudes. Shirtless, vascular, screaming, grunting, spit flying everywhere. You might not wanna watch those last episodes. Might be a little crazy.
Number 1 rule of the bench press is talking about shoulder retraction, because that's really gonna help with not only stabilizing the shoulder joint throughout the motion of this exercise, but also really focusing on making sure that chest is doing the majority of the work. Of course, the anterior deltoid, the front portion of your deltoid, and also your triceps are gonna be working as secondary muscle groups, but the main mover is supposed to be your pectoralis major, specifically the sternocostal area, which kind of comes in connecting into the sternum and kind of flaring out from there in kind of a fan position. And that's really kind of those more of the lower fibers through here, and that's typically what the flat bench press is gonna be focusing on. So it's a really excellent exercise to do if you're really trying to build that overall chest kind of look, strength. So the flat press. Thank you. When performing the flat bench press, there's a few things you want to keep in mind, and we're going to be going over those now. One, you're going to be in the supine position, lying on your back, and the points of contact are going to be upper back and your hips and your feet. A lot of people will make the mistake, and when they get into the position, they kind of let their feet flail around, and as you can tell when you go to a gym and you see some people that are new to the bench press, specifically probably teenagers, they'll be pushing that weight up, and as they're pushing the weight up, their feet are flopping around everywhere like a fish out of water. Now, one thing you gotta remember is put your feet flat on the floor, and that's gonna help stabilize you throughout the motion there. But there's a few other things you wanna keep in mind too to help stabilize you. Obviously, keep your core tight. And another thing is to keep your scapula retracted. Now, that is not only gonna stabilize your shoulder joint, but also kind of the movement of the bar and making sure you're putting most of the pressure and focus on your chest. So the focus is of course on your chest, but through elbow extension, you're gonna be hitting the triceps as a secondary muscle group. And of course, as the shoulders involved just a little bit, they're gonna be a little bit more tension, I should say, on the anterior deltoid as a secondary muscle group too. So in the position, me grasping the bar just slightly outside shoulder width. You're gonna find that line there. As you can tell, feet flat on the floor, hips stable on the bench. And before you remove the bar, you wanna squeeze your shoulders back, retract your scapula. So right now, my shoulders are really squeezed back in that position. So as soon as I unload that bar, they're gonna be right in that perfect position. Now, you don't wanna shrug your shoulders up, you wanna make sure you depress them. So it's retracted and also depressed. You can slowly lower the bar down to the sternum area and push from there. And as you can tell, I'm not flaring my elbows really wide. I'm keeping them just about a 45-degree angle for the push. And then you're gonna rep it out from there. So keeping those things in mind, you wanna make sure everything's in line, the structure is stabilized, and it's ready for that nice heavy push. There you go, the bench press. So we're on to the push press, and as the name explains, you're gonna be pushing and pressing. You're gonna be pushing with your legs and pressing overhead with the shoulders. Now, something to keep in mind when performing this is dip, drive, and press, because you're dipping down, you're flexing in your knees and also a little bit in the hip joint, just dipping down into not even really a quarter squat, even less than that, only probably dip it down a few inches. Once you reach that position, you're gonna be driving upward in the legs, and as you drive upwards, you're gonna be using that momentum, the power that you create with your lower body, and pressing up through the shoulders to make sure that weight goes up ahead, above your head, and there you go. You're gonna be grasping the bar just about shoulder width or slightly wider, and be unracking it where the bar is right at your clavicle. Your feet are going to be placed at hip width, and this is the dip portion, so you dip down only a few inches, and when you're driving up, you're pressing with your legs and also the shoulders at the same time. So it's a very quick motion. Now you want to catch the weight above, and as you catch the weight above, as you can see, my elbows are slightly locked out, and also my traps, my shoulders are gonna be elevated just like so. As you elevate the shoulders, your traps are gonna be contracted. It's gonna help stabilize the weight, but also just work them as well. So that way you're getting that full benefit of this exercise. Make sure not only your shoulders, but also your trapezius is worked out in this exercise. So dip, drive, and press. Ooh. Catch it on the way down. Ooh. And also you're gonna be kind of moving your head out of the way for the bar. As the bar is pressing, you wanna get it in a nice vertical motion there, but you have to move your head out of the way slightly, so that way it's not gonna hit your chin or your nose. Slightly dip your head out of the way, and as you're pressing it up, drive your head forward slightly, so that way when you get to that full extension, everything's kind of in line there. And there you go, the push press. What you don't wanna do, of course, in this one is you don't wanna lean back too far. Obviously, you don't wanna dip down too far where you're squatting down. driving up way too far, kind of losing a bit of that energy, elasticity that's created through there with too long of a motion, and just kind of wasting energy in that way. And really, you don't want to go too heavy either. Kind of feel this out a little bit, so that way you feel comfortable in the top full locked out position, full extension, the fully extended position. That way you still feel stable. And of course, you really have to tighten that core up, specifically when the bar is overhead, because your center of gravity is raised. It's gonna become very imbalanced in there. So you kind of keep that core tight, and then as you let that bar back down, kind of catch it, then you're ready for your second rep, third rep, fourth rep, or fifth rep.
Now, Brandon just offered a great explanation of how to perform the push press, and one of those things he said was dip drive press, which is a great thing to keep in mind. And you may have noticed I didn't do any of that. So you're thinking, what the hell? The reason why is I'm performing the overhead press. And that's due to the fact that I suffered a major ankle injury. It still hasn't completely recovered, so I experience quite a bit of pain when I do the dorsiflexion with my ankle as I'm into the dip portion of the push press exercise. So I gotta switch it up a little bit. And if you feel you can't perform the exercise, it's okay. Thankfully, there's many variations out there. You may not be performing the exact thing, but you're still working a lot of the same muscle groups. Obviously, the push press is a great shoulder compound exercise, and so is the overhead press. So if you gotta switch things up a little bit, maybe due to an injury, maybe because you're not completely secure with the exercise, don't worry about it, because you're still building muscle, and that's the point. Skull crushers. The exercise with possibly the coolest name ever, and it's also a fair warning that you don't want to load this one up with too much weight because you don't want to crush your skull. It's a very literally named exercise. And really hitting the triceps with this one, it's one of our all-time favorites.
So moving on to the skull crushers, since this is an isolation exercise and we're done with the compounds, the rep and set range is switching up slightly. We're doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions, so the volume is increasing a little bit more. And with isolations, you don't really need to put a lot of stress and weight on it since you're trying to focus on one muscle group. Specifically, in this case, the skull crusher, it's gonna be the triceps. And even more specifically, we're really trying to focus on the long head of the tricep, which is kind of the bigger head of the tricep that runs along here. And as the name explains, it's the longer head in comparison to the medial and lateral head. And the skull crusher is great for helping to isolate that because it really brings that stretch in. But even with this exercise, you can put a little extra weight on it just to make sure the triceps getting a little bit more attention that way. And some of the positions that you want to kind of keep in mind in this is you can go a pretty close grip on the bar, or you can widen it a little bit more. As you can see, we're doing kind of like easy curl where it's that cambered bar. So you kind of fit the position or pick the position of the hand that you feel most comfortable in. And as Hudson was saying, the name skull crusher sounds badass, but it's also a little bit scary at the same time, because if you go a little too heavy and you bring that weight down, you could possibly crush your own skull. We don't want that. So you can make some adjustments too, because some people they'll talk about a little bit of pain in the elbow as they flex and extend the elbow joint, which is one of the main movements of the tricep there. So what you can do is actually bring the bar a little bit behind your head there. So one, you're getting it away from your skull and bringing it back, and you're also creating a bit more stretch, but also alleviating a little bit of that elbow pain in there too. So that can be nice about kind of switching the placement up in this exercise. So it'll look like this. You're starting in this position, and then you're extending out and then back, just like so. So it's a bit more of an angle rather than kind of straight up and straight down. You'd be above the forehead here. You're gonna bring it back, and you're gonna be extending it out a slight angle. This is gonna keep a little bit more tension in the tricep too, because it has to stay really in that contraction to help stabilize that outward push, or extension, I should say. And what you want to avoid too is when you get in this position, flaring your elbows and then pressing the weight up. So you take it up, you kind of press that weight up. You want to kind of keep those elbows pointed kind of more forward, I guess, in that way. They can flare slightly. You just don't want it to start becoming a press for the shoulders and the chest, and to try to keep it just in that elbow flexion and extension there to really help isolate the triceps, since this is an actual isolation exercise. So there you go, the skull crusher, hell yeah.
The fact that there isn't a death metal band called Skull Crushers is a crime. And if there is a death metal band called Skull Crushers, those motherfuckers better have some damn good triceps.
onto the lateral raise, which is another isolation exercise. And in this case, it is going to be isolating the lateral portion of the deltoid, which is really just the head of the deltoid that's located between the anterior, the front, and the posterior, the back. So a lot of times it doesn't really get a lot of work other than maybe some slight use in stabilization or secondary muscle group. So using something like the lateral raise is really helping to focus on that, and a lot of times people will like to see a little bit more width in their delts, and this will kind of help with that a bit. So that's why we do include it. But some things that you keep in mind is, one, you don't really want to swing the weight up. Some people will utilize a lot of hip extension as they're swinging the weight up, just to get that heavy weight up, thinking that that's going to help build the deltoids. But more in the line of any isolation movement, you want to take a little bit lighter, have very strict form, and make sure you're kind of having that constant time under tension there, so that that muscle is always under contraction, either eccentrically or concentrically. And so with the lateral raise here, there's a couple ways to do it as well. You can start with the dumbbells placed kind of in front of you here. It's going to increase the range of motion slightly because you're going to have to go from here all the way up and back down, or you can just start it at your side, and it might be a little bit more comfortable. I usually do it from this position. Just from here, it's a little easier to have that protracted shoulder there. Sometimes it's, you know, go from this position to here, get a little bit of shoulder pain. So that's kind of the things you have to do. And a lot of different exercises kind of find the proper positions that work the best for you. And lateral raise is no exception in that. And so there you go. We're gonna be doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions. And coming from the side of the thighs here is going to making ball busting a little bit more difficult.
I mean, if we had our way, we would rename all exercises really, because most of them are boring. Bench press would be the chesticle spectacle, squats would be the ass blaster. If you got any names, let us know. Let's shake it up a little bit. It's 2020, we gotta get crazy. What exercise would you rename? We are on to the final exercise of this workout, which coincidentally is the most uneventful exercise, but it's one you can't forget. It's gonna be the seated calf raises. We're gonna be doing 3 sets of 10 reps, and calves sometimes don't get a lot of love. You can't really see them. I know sometimes you focus a lot on the muscles you see in the mirror. Calves, you don't see them, so you don't show them a lot of love, but you really want to, because you want to go after that aesthetic physique, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. This is full body, and calves are part of the club. So that's what we're going to be wrapping it up with.
Now you'll see a lot of mistakes happen in the calf raises. The most well-known one is doing a lot of bouncing during this exercise, not really getting that controlled movement, the time under tension, not only the dorsiflexion, but also the plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion is pulling your heels down. If you imagine like a dorsal fin out of the water, your toes are coming up, kind of out of the water like a dorsal fin, or plantar flexion, like you're pushing your toes into the ground, planting a seed. So it's basically bringing your heels down and back up, and that is utilizing the flexion and really, I should say, the contraction in your calf muscles to pull that heel up and down in that motion there. It's really getting the most effective way to isolate the calves. And, you know, of course, the calves are utilized in a lot of things, either that be running, you know, sprinting, jumping, things of that nature. But also, like Hudson was saying, it's the aesthetic look. And although you probably wear pants a lot of the year, but you know, it's just nothing like those good calves. And sometimes it's genetic, unfortunately. I mean, some people will just have good calves without working out a day in their life. But sometimes you have to work hard for them. But that's a good lesson in life as well. Anything worth having is probably gonna be through hard work. Ooh, what really helps me is imagining pulling my heels up as far as I possibly can. And once I kind of reach that peak contraction where it just really feels like that coal, that burning coal within your calf muscle, because it's really contracting at its hardest, that's when you hold it slightly and then let it back down to the stretch position. I can't talk, guys.
Down, baby.
Down, baby.
Okay, that wraps up day 1 of the beginner's phase of the Buff Dude Superhero Plan. If you don't have your copy, pick one up, link in the description. We're excited because this is our most intense plan to date, and although it starts easy, it sure as hell gets difficult. Yeah. When all else fails, flex. Yeah.